Hello, everyone. Welcome to the next episode of the Dialogue Room podcast. We're your hosts, Nadia and Jusuf, and today we're here with a special guest, Haris. Can you please introduce yourself, tell us a little bit more about yourself, and why are you here?
Hi, Nadia, first of all, and thank you for having me. It's really a pleasure to see the two of you again. I'm Haris Buljubašić. I'm a native digital journalist, meaning that most of my career I've spent in digital media. Currently, I work as a producer and presenter at Al Jazeera Balkans. I run my own show called Rezon. It's a digital explainer show where we try to break down very complicated things in a simple manner in not longer than 9 minutes, sometimes a bit longer than that.
Thank you. Let's go back to the very beginning, 10 years ago. You were an intern at N1, correct?
Yeah.
What was it like going after your dream? I saw a post of yours where you shared that you want to be a journalist and that you're in love with journalism. So what was it going after your dream? What was it going through your head when you became an intern at N1?
Well, I've always wanted to be a journalist. So it actually starts when I was second or third grade primary school. Like a group of us with our teacher, we had a live radio show at a local radio station here in Ilija. And I was hosting a live quiz. So it really started long before that. But before N1, I was working in a local NGO. It was really well paid, and I was really young, and I quit that job to become an intern. So my salary was more than half of what I was making, and I was doing more hours than I was doing at that NGO. But I knew that being a journalist is what I want to do, and I knew that that investment, becoming an intern at such a great place like N1, will pay off later on, and it did. So I left a job to become an intern. And yeah, I spent almost a year at N1, and it was a really great beginning for me, after which, and actually from which, I also got an internship at Deutsche Welle in Germany at the Bosnian desk, which was also a really cool experience, and it gave me international experience. And ever since I was switching between regional and international media, so yeah, was always focusing on more than just Bosnia and Herzegovina.
Thank you.
When it comes to journalism industry, a lot of people don't take a risk, and when they see themselves as journalists, but they don't take that risk step you took.
Yeah.
Can you recall that moment when you were like, okay, I want to be this in my life, I want to be a journalist, and what was that first step that you saw an opportunity to be a journalist?
Well, I really cannot remember the first moment, to be honest with you, because that was I was between a lawyer and a journalist. Whatever it was, it should be a profession where I speak a lot, because I can speak a lot. The second thing was I always wanted my job to have a purpose. I always wanted to contribute to the society. So when we are small, we see lawyers as these people who fight for justice, but it's not always the case. Sometimes you get to defend a criminal. So, it wasn't really. And I don't know when the switch from a lawyer to a journalist happened, but that was the main goal, to do something that will help the society. And I think journalism is really one of a few professions where we can contribute to bettering a society. And that's why I'm doing it. If I can contribute a little bit to make this society a happier place, a better place, a safer place for everyone, then I'm super happy about it.
Thank you.
You mentioned that you worked in Germany. You also worked in Istanbul, and
Yes.
you're working now here in Sarajevo. How does this international, let's say, experience of working across the world helped you see journalism today?
It helps a lot, because for you, first of all, I think that we in Bosnia and Herzegovina tend to see this country as maybe one of the worst countries, but I feel much freer here, reporting from here, than anywhere else. And I'm super happy about it. So when it comes to media, maybe the technical aspect and how well it pays, it's not the best. But when it comes to freedoms, it's much freer than at many other places. But also we don't always tend to think so. But it helps a lot. For example, if today I'm reporting on Kashmir, in Istanbul, I met people from Pakistan, I met people from India. I got to talk to people from Kashmir and to actually know better what's going on there. I got to work with Palestinian people, with people from Gaza, like 5, 6, 7 years ago. So I got to understand them better. And now if I need some clarifications, it's much easier for me to talk to my colleagues from all around the world and to get a better insight in what's going on there. So I would really recommend everyone who can get an opportunity to get an internship or a job abroad, because I know it sounds like a phrase, but it really broadens your horizons.
When you were mentioning Deutsche Welle, TRT World, and Istanbul, where you were working, was there something like a click that happened when you were like, okay, this is what I want to do for the rest of the life, and when you thought like, okay, this is going to be my profession and my everyday life is going to be like this, like I'm going to be a journalist and reporting and everything?
I think like when we have that, let's call it aha moment or a wow moment, is when we hear the reaction from our audience. So there's this theory in journalism that your story starts living once it's out. Then it starts its life on its own and you don't know how it's going to affect the society, how the people are going to react to it. So once you get the first feedback from people, I think that's what keeps us going. You know, when you hear something like, you know, we watched your show, I really didn't know that, now it's clearer to me. Or, you know, if I love reporting on sustainability. And if I can make somebody cut the waste a little bit, and when they tell me like, you know, I saw this tip and I switched from like a plastic bottled shampoo to like a solid shampoo, like that's when we know that we did something, and that's what keeps us going. Sometimes we forget about it because we all have our echo chambers, but like when you meet people on the street and they recognize you and they tell something nice about your work, that's like the biggest motivation, I would say.
Yeah, that like influence on people.
Yeah, and you know, like Deutsche Welle in Bosnia, it has quite some influence. But like what was really interesting is like that, you know, Istanbul is a huge city itself, and Turkey is a great country. But we would still, like, I would still get recognized on the streets, and that was really amazing. Like, you know, that somebody stops you in Istanbul. I was walking in Üsküdar by the Bosphorus, and that's one of my favorite walks. That's where I used to live. And like, you know, I got stopped, and the guy was like, "Hey, I watch your shows. They're really good." I was like, you know, it's fine when it happens in Sarajevo, but it happens like in a city that's such a big city like Istanbul, that's like really on another level. And each of those experiences have like, you know, their own benefits on your career, like working in Deutsche Welle and then working in Istanbul. It's a really an amazing experience to spend time at both those places.
Yeah, it gives you like a push.
Yeah.
To continue.
No, it really does, you know, and in terms of, as I said, of contacts, you know, I can always rely on my colleagues from Istanbul to send me a contact of somebody if I don't know, you know. I understand the Turkish context much better now, so if I need to report on the elections, on the earthquake, it's much easier for me to go there, and because I have contacts, I speak a little bit of the language, but I understand the context better because I live there, you know, that's really a huge advantage.
Being recognized on the street is, I mean, important, and it really helps somebody, it motivates us. How important is it for you when youth recognize you, when a younger adult comes up to you and tells you, oh, I've learned something about you? I mean, I know you talk a lot about media ethics, and you're very vocal on your stances on Palestine and just everything in general. I see through your Instagram and other social media profiles how important it is for you to motivate, inspire, and reach the younger audience.
It was really the aim with this show. It was a really new thing for Al Jazeera Balkans. So this is the first digital show at Al Jazeera Balkans. So we create show for YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and TV, I would say, is a side effect. You know, it just airs on TV as well. So when I have younger people come to me and say the stuff that you mentioned, that means a lot to me. That means that we are reaching our goal. Young people like the two of you have been exposed to social media ever since. So it's really hard to grab your attention, because I always say to people, like, you know, there's my show about kids in Gaza, for example, but the next show is a cute cat video. The next video is how somebody scored like an amazing goal. So like I compete with all those people, and I have to find ways of telling you the story that matters. And it's not always easy. And to be honest with you, sometimes I'm fed up. Sometimes I'm like, I'm not here to entertain you. If you want to find out something about Russia and Ukraine, there you go, but I'm not going to entertain you. But that's not how it works. So nowadays we are much more than journalists. We have to be really good with audience engagement. And you know it yourself. It's not just enough to record a podcast. You can have the best podcast possible, but if you have not promoted it well, if you didn't do like all the searching engines on YouTube, like if you didn't cut it like 9:16 for TikTok, it's not going to reach the audience. So nowadays we are doing much more than journalists did. That's why I'm called a producer, because I do much more. So talking to young people is really the best experience to me. It's really demanding, to be honest with you, and it's not always fun to switch. Like 6 years ago, it was a thing to post on Facebook. Then Instagram came. Now TikTok has become mainstream. Now we have this Snapchat generation.
You have to adapt yourself.
Yeah, I'm like 31 and I already feel old when we talk about Snapchat. Yeah. And more people go to Snapchat for news, and Snapchat has a great content creator platform. They pay people to spread news on there, but so you always have to keep up and what will come after Snapchat. So it's really consuming, to be honest with you. But what's important, and you mentioned it, is journalistic ethics. The form can change, but the ethics always remain high, and that's what differs us from content creators. Content creator can be amazing, but their goal is to reach as many people as possible and to make money. Our goal is to inform people, first of all. And that's really, I'm so fortunate to work at Al Jazeera as a non-commercial media outlet that really has strong ethical principles. And it really helps us because we are not expected to report in favor of anyone. And then you mentioned Palestine, and I was I was thinking, what if I'd been working somewhere else at the moment when genocide started? I would have probably felt embarrassed to work at many Western media outlets at this point. Those media outlets that we learned about at the university that were role models. Now it all failed after Palestine. And yes, I'm very vocal about Palestine. And as Al Jazeera's slogan says, voice of the voiceless, we are so happy that we are one of the few outlets to be able to report from Gaza. Although we wish that had never happened, we wish that had never been a thing. But since it's happening, the Israeli genocide against those people, we still have people from Gaza who report from us, for us. And that's really a huge thing for our audience. To have somebody firsthand to tell what's going on the ground.
How does reporting constantly on such hard topics affect your everyday life? Does it affect you in any negative way? Do you sometimes wish that you can just close the app and maybe move on to some lighter topics to share? I mean, as a journalist, you're constantly keeping up to date and you're constantly having to explain that and report it. Do you ever wish maybe I need to take a break, maybe I deserve a little break just to stay away from these hard topics?
I do. I often feel like I need a break. And I wrote about it, and then you followed up. I said, one day I just wish to report on what Kim Kardashian wore last night, because there is so much pain in this world. I was if you go from the Far East and you see what China is doing to Uyghurs, if you see that there's still a lot of Rohingyas who live in Cox's Bazar, which is a dire situation to live in, then we move on to Syria, Gaza, Sudan, Somalia. There's so many bad things going on in this world, unfortunately. And as a journalist, you need to be aware of all of them. You need to report on all of them. I was just yesterday preparing my episode on the life of children in Gaza. And I think every half an hour I needed a break, because I had to go through all the raw footage, through all the uncensored footage, and see dead bodies, see kids, I could cry right now, see kids crying on the graves of their parents. It's really tough. And it's really hard to disconnect. You cannot just at 5 p.m. decide not to think about kids in Gaza. It's impossible. But so you do need hobbies and you do need ways to vent. And like there is this constant pressure, like, I can do something. Like, somebody working in a bank, maybe they cannot do something throughout their job to help the kids in Gaza, but like you constantly feel this pressure that you, as somebody who has access to the public, that you can do something. And whenever you don't, you feel like you are failing it. So you really have to like sit down and say like, okay, I'm one of 0.001% of people who can reach huge audiences. We are doing a lot. You have to take a break, because people in Gaza also don't want us broken. It's not what they want. They are also aware that like, we are giving our best. So I need to take breaks. We can talk about it. I try to travel as much as I can. And yes, every now and then I'm like, maybe I should change what I'm doing. But then, with each new feedback from the audience, with each new support, I'm like, okay, this is the right place to be. I can take a break, but I should not give up.
I feel like people often romanticize success, like they think it just comes after like one night, overnight the success comes. Can you tell us like those parts that are behind the scenes that people usually don't see, like harder parts, and what it all takes to get successful in this industry?
Oh, that's a really tough question, but I think it applies on like whatever you do, My mom actually always taught me, she's like, whatever you do, be the best in what you are doing. So if you are... Yeah, all the moms are like, if you're going to be cleaning the streets, let your street be the cleanest. And I think that's the aim. We should not all be engineers, we should not all be doctors, but like whatever we do, we should really try our best. Yes. And then on the other hand, I hate those motivational quotes like 1% better every day. No, I'm not. Sometimes I'm like 10% worse, but like, it's ups and downs. It's not always like improving, and it cannot always be because it's really consuming, as we talked about. People do romanticize success, and I cannot blame it on them because we've all been exposed to so many like Hollywood movies, where it's super easy to become successful. And if you are successful, you're also handsome. On top of that, it always goes hand to hand.
Layers to success.
Yeah, there's a lot of hard work, but there's one key thing: consistency, like not giving up. Yeah. That's really the key thing. You can take a break. I take breaks often. I'm not one of those who is like, let's work hard. We need to like, grind every day and stuff like that. We need, but we also need to rest hard because we live in neoliberal capitalism, which is not natural to us as human beings. It's made to consume us. So we need to be aware of that and to take good breaks, to also have life outside work, to be able to, come fresh to work. But also when we work, we also need to be fresh for our families. So the aim, although capitalism values us only through work and through money that we make through that work. It doesn't value us through the relationship with our parents, through the relationship with our partners. It simply values us through money. So if you've made a lot of money, that means you're successful. But that's not what it is. Why don't we have a relationship with parents as a value? Why don't we have a relationship with our colleagues at work as a value? I would love to live in a world like that. So what people don't see behind the scenes is a lot of work. It's tears sometimes. It's fixing problems all the times. They really see just a tiny thing. But I think, again, journalism can help us understand each other better because, we go to buy shoes, and we're going to focus on how they look, how comfortable they are, but we don't see what's behind the scenes. We don't see sweatshops in Bangladesh. We don't see forced labor in China. Those are the things that also make up good shoes, good clothes. And I think that we should be, we judge a lot, but just if I understand you, and if I try to make myself in your shoes, I can maybe judge you less. I can understand you better, and together we can function better. And I think journalism can really help us to understand what a doctor goes through, what a banker goes through, and that's also one of the things that I always try to do in my work. Like I try to break the prejudice and try to make people understand each other better. if I come to you with a prejudice of what your job looks like, what do you stand for, we're not going to do well together.
Yeah, I agree.
Moving on a little lighter topics.
Yeah.
I want to ask you, what is your favorite part about your job? I mean, you travel, you get to interview a lot of people, you get to work with a lot of people, you get to meet, if I can say, fans. What would be the highlight of your job that constantly moves you, that really gets you you know what, yeah. I mean, you mentioned that when you see the support, but is there anything else that really just makes you believe that everything you're doing is worth it?
Impact is number one. As I said, if we can make one person change their opinion, if we can get one Zionist move on the other side, then we've succeeded. And that's the first thing. Getting feedback helps a lot. But if we talk about behind the scenes, it's like being surrounded by other journalists. And I think that hanging out with journalists, it's a really a special thing, because we all talk a lot, we all know a lot about everything. And just spending 2-3 hours with my colleagues is always refreshing. Going for a coffee break with a person who knows a lot about the politics in the US, who knows what's going on in Gaza. It's really refreshing. And I love spending time with my colleagues. That's a really cool thing. Traveling as well. I had a chance to report from Chile, and that was really such an amazing thing to be able to go so far. And I reported on the minorities. There's 500,000 Palestinians living in Chile, so I made a story about them. And then I also made a story about Croatians. There is more than 100,000 Croatians in Chile, and they have a huge influence. The president of Chile is Croatian. And they're a really successful and a really influential community, and seeing people so far away, sharing cultures, they sing the same songs that we do, they speak the language still more or less. That's a really cool thing that I personally would not be able to afford myself, or would not get that idea to do something like that. But there's also a famous video that helped me so much in career, and it's called Little Bosnia in Turkey. It's about a Bosnian village, Turankoy, which is not so far from Istanbul, maybe 2 hours away, where a community of Bosnian people lives. Most of them have never been to Bosnia, but they primarily speak Bosnian. And they would say things like that I cannot even translate into English. I would have never met them without doing this job. It has a lot of perks. We are also privileged in many things. You get to meet people that other people don't. You get to have all the politicians' numbers. You can get politicians to reply to you on WhatsApp. So those are you get access to many privileged places.
Do you have any advice to give for our audiences that want to enroll in journalism industry, and do you have any tips and tricks for future journalists?
Yeah, it's really about the experience. So, I mean, we've known each other from before. We spent amazing 7 days in France. And what I always tell students, it's really about the experience. So, if you're studying journalism, which you don't have to become a journalist, maybe it's cool to go to a business school if you want to be a business journalist, but always get the experience. If you're at the university, do something like you guys are doing. You're doing an amazing thing. You have a podcast. So tomorrow when the employer asks you, okay, I see you had all the A's, but have you actually done anything? Have you applied this knowledge?
Experience.
Yeah, you have a lot already to show. And I think that your university is doing an amazing thing, and they are really providing you with so many opportunities that you will benefit from. So I always tell people, don't expect to be paid immediately. Volunteer. If you are into sustainable fashion, let's start an Instagram page on it. Just have something to show to your future employers. Research your employer well. We talked about ethics. You shouldn't really work for any media outlet. Try to get as good one as you can. So go out there, be open-minded, meet as many people as possible, say yes to new opportunities, broaden your horizons. apply for different internships, for different seminars, and it will really, really pay off. Because, sometimes they say that journalism is more like a handcraft, not just like a profession. You really, really have to have experience.
Your success.
Yeah.
Pretty much, yeah.
Thank you, Haris, so much for joining us today. It was an honor to have you here. We learned so much, and I believe that our viewers have as well. And thank you guys for tuning in into another episode of the Dialogue Room. We'll see you next time. Goodbye.